I don't use Tinder anymore. In fact, I deleted every dating app off my phone a year ago and haven't looked back. I used to think the worst thing that could happen on there was a bad date or getting ghosted. Turns out that's the best thing that can happen. This all started February of last year. I'm a male, was 28, single, and honestly just looking for someone to hang out with. I matched with a girl named Lily. At least, that's what she said it was. Her profile looked normal enough. Couple selfies, some pics by the pool, and one with her dog. She wasn't posting like an influencer, just normal. Her bio said that she was a nurse, that she liked early morning coffee and late night drives, and lived in a town about 15 minutes from me. We matched on Wednesday. She messaged first, which I liked. She was funny, quick, a little flirty, but not over the top. We talked for about 3 days straight before she asked if I wanted to meet up for drinks. Our first date was at a small bar downtown. She was already there when I arrived, wearing a big oversized sweater and ripped jeans. Honestly, she was prettier in person, but there was something a little off about her eyes, like she was trying too hard to read me. Still, the night went well. She laughed at my dumb jokes, touched my arm when she talked. I thought, okay, maybe this could actually go somewhere. The second date was dinner. That's when I started to notice she kind of overstepped. She kept asking about my ex, how long we dated, why we broke up, if I still talked to her. When I would try to change the subject, she just stared back, always with this half smile, like she was testing how honest I'd be. After dinner, she wanted me to come over to watch a movie. I said maybe another time. I had work early the next morning. Her smile dropped just for a second before she said, "Sure, yeah, you're probably tired," or something along those lines. I honestly didn't think much of it, but the next morning I woke up to a text from her at 3 a.m. "I had a really good time. I feel like I've known you forever." Okay, a little intense, but not deal-breaking. I replied the next day something simple like, "Yeah, I had fun too." But then it started. She texted me every morning before I even woke up. "Good morning. Hope you're thinking of me. Did you dream of me last night?" Stuff like that. I wasn't responding much, and she noticed. She sent me a message that said, "You're not like other guys, I can tell. Please don't ignore me." That's when I started pulling back even more. I told her I'd been busy at work. She said she understood, then sent me a photo of my workplace, outside of my building. She captioned it, "Guess who's nearby?" with a kissy face. I froze. I hadn't even told her where I worked. I asked her how she knew, and she just said, "You mentioned it when we were talking about commutes." She could be telling the truth. I honestly don't even remember that. I went outside, didn't see her or her car. She must have taken the picture and left. I told myself maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe she really just happened to be nearby. Naive. A week later, she showed up at the same coffee shop I go to every morning before work. I was in line and she suddenly was right behind me, smiling like she planned it. "Hey, what are the odds?" I laughed awkwardly and said hi, but inside my stomach was turning. She followed me to a table, sat down uninvited, and started talking to me like we had been dating for months. She even reached across the table to grab my hand. I pulled back and said I had to get going. That night, I decided to end it. I sent her a long message saying she seemed nice, but I didn't feel a connection and thought it would be best if we didn't see each other again. She never did reply. No text the next day, no calls. I actually felt relieved. Maybe she got the hint. That Friday, I stayed late at work, and when I walked out to the parking lot, there was a sticky note on my windshield. "You shouldn't ignore people who care about you." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. There wasn't a camera in the lot, and no one had seen anything. I drove home and spent the night checking every window lock twice. The next few weeks were quiet. I convinced myself she had finally moved on. Then my coworker asked if my girlfriend had dropped something off. I said, "What girlfriend?" And he showed me a small paper bag that had been left at reception with my name on it. Inside were cookies, a Polaroid photo of me sitting in my car, looking down at my phone. That photo broke something in me. It wasn't from a distance, barely across the street. It was close, passenger side, which meant she had been right next to my car at some point. I went to the police. They said unless she made a threat or actually hurt me, there wasn't much they could do. Block her number, they said. If she contacts you again, we'll make a report. I blocked her on everything: Tinder, phone, Instagram, everything. I even switched up my route to work and changed coffee shops. For a while, it worked. Then one night, about a month or two later, I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside my bedroom window. I have gravel outside my window, and gravel makes a lot of noise, and my bedroom was on the first floor. I grabbed my phone, but before I could even unlock it, I heard whispering. I couldn't make out any of the words, but it was definitely a woman's voice. I turned on my light, and the whispering stopped. I waited for what felt like an hour, on edge, staring out the window. Eventually, I convinced myself it might have been my neighbors or a stray animal. Till the next morning. I found something on my porch, a single red rose and another Polaroid, this one much worse than the first. Me sleeping, the light from my TV in the background. My apartment was shit anyway, so I moved. I broke my 2-month lease early, packed up everything I owned, and went to stay with my brother on the other side of the city. I didn't tell anyone, not even close friends, where I was going. For a while, it was quiet. I started to relax again, started going out, trying to pretend none of it happened. I even got a new job. But a month after the move, I got a call from an unknown number. I usually ignore those, but it had our area code, so I answered without thinking. There was silence at first. Then in a calm, almost cheerful voice, a woman said, "I found you." Then they hung up. That was 8 months ago, and I haven't heard from her since, but sometimes, when I leave for work early in the morning, I have this feeling that someone's watching me from the parking lot. I glance around, not seeing anyone, telling myself it's just my paranoia. But every once in a while, I notice a car following me for a little too long. I tell myself it's not her, that it can't be. But this text that she sent me right before I blocked her, that I can't get out of my head, always comes back to the top. You can't just unmatch what's meant to be. This happened about 2 years ago. I was 27, living in a small apartment in Austin, and I'd just gotten out of a long-term relationship. My friends convinced me to try Bumble, the less creepy dating app where women message first. That made me feel safer, like I had control over whoever I talked to. His name was Evan, late 20s, dark hair, clean cut in that tech guy way. His profile said that he worked in cybersecurity, he liked camping, and was looking for someone real. The pictures were normal, no shirtless selfies, no weird filters, just him hiking, holding a dog, smiling with friends. We matched on Thursday. I messaged him first because that's how Bumble works. He was polite and funny, maybe a little awkward, but I kinda liked that. We talked for about a week before he asked me if I wanted to grab coffee. We met at this place called Merit Coffee on South Lamar. I remember he was already sitting at a table when I got there, facing the door, like he wanted to make sure he saw me first. He stood up right away, offered to buy me a drink, and smiled, a little too wide, but I might have been overanalyzing. At first, the date was fine. He asked me about my job, my family, where I grew up. But as the conversation went on, there was this weird shift. like he was studying me more than listening. Every time I looked up, he was just staring, not in a flirty way, but in this blank, intense way, like he was memorizing my face. Then he started asking strange questions. How do you feel about people who lie? Have you ever cheated on anyone? What's your biggest fear? He wasn't smiling when he asked. It wasn't banter. It felt like an interview, or maybe an interrogation. When I gave vague answers, he tilted his head a little, like he didn't believe me. I remember him saying something like, "You seem like the kind of person who keeps secrets." I laughed awkwardly and said, "Don't we all?" After about an hour, I said I had to meet up with a friend. He didn't offer to walk me out, which I was fine with. As I stood up, he said, "You're even prettier in person. Pictures never fully capture people, you know?" I smiled politely and said goodbye. That night, he texted, "Had a really great time today. We should do dinner soon." I didn't respond. Something about him made my skin crawl. I couldn't even pinpoint it, just a gut feeling. The next morning, another text. "Did I say something wrong?" Then a few hours later, "I just want to understand. I thought we had a connection." That was enough for me. I unmatched him on Bumble, blocked his number, and went on with my life. For months, nothing. I forgot about him. Then, about a year later, I was eating dinner with my roommate, half watching the local news, when a photo on the screen made me stop cold. It was him, Evan. The anchor said something about a missing woman, his girlfriend, and how he was wanted for questioning. They showed a picture of the woman smiling in front of a lake, then a mugshot photo of him from a previous arrest. The reporter said the police believe he fled the state. I sat there frozen, spoon halfway in my mouth. My roommate turned to me and said, "You okay?" I couldn't even speak. Over the next week, it was everywhere. Reddit threads, even TikTok videos about the case. Turns out, they found a woman's body a few miles outside the city. She had been missing for weeks before anyone realized it. A news report said that he had quit his job abruptly and drained his bank account. Last I heard, they think he crossed into Mexico and he's still on the loose. I didn't tell anyone we had gone on a date. I don't even know why. Maybe because it felt too surreal, or maybe because I was scared someone would ask me why I didn't see it. I think about that coffee date a lot, how he asked me what my biggest fear was. I said something stupid like, probably being alone. And I can still remember clear as day, he said something along the lines of, "That's not so bad. Alone means you won't get hurt." Back in 2014, I'd gone on a first date with this guy I matched with on Tinder. I lived in DC at the time and worked on Capitol Hill for a US congressman. I was 28 or 29 at the time. He was nice, handsome, and a self-declared Southern gentleman, but he was extremely pushy leading up to our first date. My job was even more insanely busy than normal during that time, requiring frequent all-nighters and entailing exactly zero social life to speak of. Looking back now, it was painfully obvious that I absolutely did not have the time or space in my life for dating back then. But after months of my bestie begging me to let her create a Tinder profile, I basically surrendered. For weeks, I tried to reschedule said first date due to work being crazy, but Tinder guy would literally not take no for an answer. He was also extremely manipulative and clearly gifted at it, as he basically guilt-tripped me, broke me down to finally agree on a first date with him. Only dinner was mentioned for the date, so I go on the date. While the date went fine on paper and probably looked as such to any fellow patrons or bystanders, Tinder guy nonetheless kinda gave me the ick for some reason. At the time, I couldn't lock down why. He was nice, polite, had a great job, was attractive, but still, Something about the way he would continue to stare at me so intently without blinking was so unsettling. It was like he was playing some intense, weird-ass staring contest where he was the only contestant. There were a lot of other icks and red flags during the date, but the first major one was the fact that I was casually held hostage, or at least it felt that way. At the conclusion of our dinner, and after politely thanking him for the meal, knowing 100% that there would be no second date, I tried to make my exit home, telling him that I had a busy early workday ahead of me. Not a lie. Instead, Tinder guy, of course, pressures me into going to a bar next door for a nightcap. Looking back now, and thanks to therapy, I've learned a lot about manipulation and how it can be weaponized. Tinder guy was a master at it, and I had no chance. After 2 drinks that I didn't want, I mentioned that I needed to go home, with a little bit more force this time. Tinder guy acts like he doesn't hear me, gets up, and heads to the bar before returning with beers for both of us. I'm beginning to get annoyed and super pissed, so after a few minutes, I fake an incoming call from my boss, essentially channeling my inner Meryl Streep, and proceed to attempt to give him the best acting performance of my life. And not to pat myself on the back or anything, but I should obviously get all the Oscars because holy shit, it worked. The good news, Tinder guy totally buys my Oscar-worthy acting, finally stops ignoring my polite pleas to go home, and agrees to let me, his hostage, go. However, he insists on sharing an Uber home, even though we live in a completely separate neighborhood, nowhere near each other. Not to mention the obvious fact that I absolutely did not want this creeper to potentially gain any sort of idea where I lived, or come anywhere near where I lived. Quite frankly, I knew at this point that I did not want to spend one more minute, nor have anything more to do with this creepy stranger, including being trapped in a confined space like a car with this person. So I tried to refuse repeatedly as I was feeling increasingly more uncomfortable. And again, obviously not wanting him to see where I live, but he literally wouldn't take no for an answer. So in a major "what the fuck are you doing" moment, especially looking back now 10 years later, I silently stomached my anxiety, concerns, protests, and we proceed to an Uber to my neighborhood. Though I did get out at a different address a few blocks away from my place, so he wouldn't know my exact address. As I attempt to disembark from the car, as quick as a flash, the Tinder guy follows behind me, grabs my shoulder, and spins me around, before then aggressively kissing me. Like I'm talking straight up manhandling my face with his tongue. Apologizing for the not safe for work description, especially if it results in bringing up any sort of trauma. But if I had to experience it, you do too. As Tinder guy finally lets go of my face, I'm trying my best to swallow back the vomit, and after 10 minutes of placating him, I finally get him to accept that this nightmare first date is finally over, that I'm going to sleep, and he reluctantly agrees to leave. As soon as our Uber leaves with Tinder guy and is out of sight, I run to my actual home, lock and deadbolt the door as soon as I get inside. I literally sink to the floor in disbelief. In the end, once I calmed down and felt secure again, I was mostly just relieved to be home safe and sound, and that I survived a date with a deeply unsettling, creepy, and disconcerting man. I'd even joked to my roommates at the time, "Can't wait to never talk to that dude again." 10 years ago me was a naive fool. Instead, immediately following our date, Tinder guy proceeded to send me a barrage of texts that entire rest of the night, fawning all over me and mostly asking over and over again, "Can we FaceTime?" Keep in mind, this was literally 1 hour after I had gotten home from our date. I lied and said I was already in bed, basically asleep, since I had absolutely zero intentions of ever speaking to this person again. I naively thought that was the end of it. Tinder guy continued to text me nonstop over the next few days, and I would either ignore him or send him short responses. While it was a cop-out, I planned on messaging him the truth, letting him down gently at the end of the week when I wasn't swimming in work craziness. As I mentioned earlier, I worked on Capitol Hill for a US congressman at the time. As such, My office was subject to strict security screenings, metal detectors, x-ray scanners at the building entrance, which also extended to incoming mail, packages, and deliveries. So a day after this first date debacle, I get a call on my office line from the offsite Capitol Hill package center, stating that they're currently processing screening a package for me, and that it should be delivered to my office in 2 days. I think, that's odd. I'm not expecting anything, so who would mail me something? But I shrug it off, as it's not the first time I received unsolicited packages due to the nature of my job, and I basically forgot about it until Friday. Our office receptionist came to my cubicle with an over-the-top bouquet of roses and a card. I immediately knew who was responsible. However, the real reason I felt deeply unsettled was the sheer fact that I never told Tinder Guy who I worked for, hell, even which state my boss belonged to. I'd given him literally zero clues as to whom the member I worked for was. And while my social media settings were pretty private anyway, I didn't include the name of the member office in which I worked in any of my online profiles, including LinkedIn. I also didn't give this Tinder guy my last name, so I have no idea how he would have found it out to begin with. There are 535 total congressional offices on Capitol Hill. There's approximately 15,000 congressional staffers who worked on the Hill, and there's no way of telling how many staffers who share my first name you'd have to go through in searching for my last name and the office address. To this day, I have no idea how Tinder Guy found out this identifying info when I only provided him with my first name and general employment info. Needless to say, if I wasn't creeped out enough by this guy before or at that point, now I was 1000% full-fledged freaked out, especially reading the note that accompanied the flowers. He talked about how great of a kisser I was, vomit, what he wanted to do with me, bile raising, how he hoped I could meet his family, add delusional to the list of descriptions for this guy, and how he couldn't wait to see me again. In your dreams, bud. I look forward to seeing you never. One good thing that came out of this experience is finally, and obviously, gave me the balls to end it with Tinder Guy via text. Dating is the fucking worst, and until this experience, if I was talking to someone, but also knew at the same time that I wasn't interested, I would still engage and respond to their messages, basically leading them on, all because I didn't want to hurt their feelings and feel guilty. I now realize how unfair that was to the other person, and have since vowed that I'll never cop out when it comes to the uncomfortable issues that the recipient needs and deserves to hear. It also helped me install a little bit more fuck politeness mantra. I'm fortunately in a serious, long-term relationship now, but while dating or even in my regular life, if I ever feel uncomfortable and uneasy like Tinder Guy made me feel, I now fight the urge to be agreeable and polite, and either directly block, cut ties, or at least explain why I'm blocking before cutting off the communication.